If you want to deploy a Python function to the cloud and run it locally in seconds, well, here's the entire thing. Save this as main.py, install the functions framework using UV, for example, and then run it as follows. And now you've got a serverless function that's running locally on port 8080. This is what it looks like when you navigate to that page. Functions framework is something that Google offers. So if you actually want to deploy this to Google Cloud, well, things get a little bit more complicated, but it's not even that hard. So in this video, I'm going to look at what serverless actually means and how to work around some of the limitations of serverless functions. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then I'll also cover when you should use them and when you should stick with another solution altogether. This video is sponsored by Pulumi. More about them later. Now, what is a serverless function? It's nothing more than a piece of code that runs in the cloud without you managing any servers. It's typically triggered by an event like an HTTP request or a pops up message, a file upload. And when something like that happens, the cloud provider handles basically everything: the provisioning, scaling, including to zero, billing, which of course you will only pay when that function actually runs. And it's not just Google Cloud that offers this. There's similar offerings across different cloud providers. AWS has Lambda functions, Azure has functions, and then there is Google Cloud functions. Or if you're looking for a cloud provider in Europe, Scaleway also has serverless functions. Each of these has its own quirks and differences. Today, I'll focus on the Google version of that. And like I mentioned, Google offers the functions frameworks, so you can easily test your cloud function locally. And this is obviously very helpful because this helps you build and test your functions locally before you actually deploy it. Now, there are some limitations, but before I talk about that, let's actually deploy this function to the cloud. For that, I'm going to use Pulumi, who is also the sponsor of this video. Now, when you're deploying something to the cloud, there's lots of different ways that you can do it. For example, you can directly create resources in the cloud provider's dashboard. Or you could install the CLI by the cloud provider and then create your resources that way. Now, Pulumi is a bit different. This is an infrastructure as code tool. And that means that you can define what your cloud infrastructure looks like and handle provisioning, resources, and deployment by writing code in your favorite programming language, like Python. And to me, actually, infrastructure as code makes a lot of sense because you specify what your infrastructure looks like, and that's directly part of your code base. Getting started with Pulumi is really easy. If you're using a Mac, you can install directly with Brew, for example, like so. But as you can see, Pulumi is already installed, but it's outdated, so it's currently upgrading it. Now, like I mentioned, when you're deploying a cloud function, there's actually a couple of other things you need to do as well, and that have mostly to do with security. For one, you need to specify how the cloud function may be accessed. Is it via HTTP endpoint? And who can actually access that? So there's lots of options to think about. So it's not as straightforward as you think. But in any case, what you're going to need is that cloud function is going to be packaged as an artifact that's going to be uploaded to the cloud. So that artifact needs to be stored somewhere. So for that, you need a storage bucket. Then you actually need to create the actual cloud function resource. And then you also need to specify access. So if you do this using Pulumi in Python, then this is basically what that looks like. So we create a bucket. Then I'm creating a bucket object, which contains the actual Python resource, the asset. Then I'm creating a cloud function with a specific name, location. You can specify a build config, like which version of Python do you want to use and where that asset is going to be stored that the cloud function is based on. You can configure the service, like how much memory will it use, what is the timeout, and what's the maximum number of instances, things to do with scalability, obviously. And then finally, like I mentioned, you need to specify how the function is going to be accessed. So in this case, I'm saying that there is an invoker of this particular cloud function, and that's available to all users. In principle, this means that the function is public and anybody can call it. Now, what's nice is that Pulumi actually directly works with UV, so you can specify your dependencies and create a virtual environment with UV. And then Pulumi will create a requirement txt file for you when you deploy the cloud function, because Google Cloud Functions don't know how to use UV. They have requirements.txt. Now, once you specified your infrastructure in Python, it's really easy to actually deploy that by using Pulumi up. And I see after deployment, actually I made a little mistake, so I had to redeploy it. That's why this looks slightly different. But as you can see, it outputs the actual Python endpoint. And that's actually also in the infrastructure as code specification right here at the end. So we get the URL after we deploy this. So when I click this, so now you see we actually calling the function in the cloud, and it gives us the same result as we had right in the beginning. Now, what is interesting is that if you make changes to this infrastructure, then Pulumi is going to provision the right resources in the cloud to match those changes. For example, maybe I want to change my service configuration from a timeout of 60 seconds. I maybe want to change that to only 30 seconds. So I make that change. And then I simply run Pulumi up, and it's going to detect which things are going to need to be changed in order to do that. So in this case, the only thing we need to do is update the actual cloud function, and then I can perform that update. Now, once you've deployed this with the settings that you want, you can actually also see it in your Google Cloud Console. So as you can see, that function is right here, and I can click that. And then we have the HTTP URL. You can attach custom domains to this. You can view the logs to see what's going on. You can add other things like environment variables, etc., etc. If you want to try Pulumi yourself and organize your infrastructure by simply writing Python, go to pulumi.com and get started for free. The link is also in the description of this video. Now, like I mentioned, there are limitations to serverless functions, and in particular, if you're running them on Google Cloud. For example, one limitation is that these functions, they use Flask. So if you want to use something like Fast API, which is reasonable nowadays, one of the most popular API frameworks, well, you're out of luck. Also, typically, Google Cloud offers only a single entry point per function. Now, there is a way to simulate subroutes with a trick that I'm going to show you in a minute, but that's not native, it's not built in. Another thing is that it uses a fixed execution environment. And this is true of serverless functions in general, because you're typically dependent on the runtimes that the cloud provider provides. Google, for example, provides runtimes for most of the Python versions, but as soon as a new Python version comes out, you may not immediately be able to use that. It's going to take a while before that runtime is available. And if you want something custom, maybe a different OS, or a very different setup, well, then that's unfortunately not supported. So there's no Docker files, no custom base images, and of course those are things that are available with other types of solutions. Also, Google Cloud doesn't support UV yet. So there's no PyProject TOML file, it even doesn't support poetry. You need a requirement.txt file. Now with UV, it's actually possible to generate a requirements.txt file from the PyProject file, and this is how you do that. So when you run that, you see that we get now a requirements.txt file that's being generated. And actually, if you're using Pulumi for deployment together with UV, then it's actually going to call this directly for you. Another issue with cloud functions is that there is no native async support. So even if you use an async function, there is no actual running event loop. And you may also encounter cold start. So that means you have to wait a while before the function can actually run. And that's because in particular, if you have larger dependencies, then, well, the startup is just going to be slow on the first call. And then, of course, Google is going to keep that function alive for a while. So the subsequent calls are going to be faster. But after a while, the function will be put back into storage again. And then when you recall it, you're going to need to wait. Finally, there's no persistent file system. So there's like a limited number of space. It's mainly for, source code and things like that. And it's typically wiped each time you invoke the function. So if you want a file system, you're going to need to set up something separately. An important thing that you need to consider with serverless functions and any cloud application is, of course, security. And that means you need to make sure you use environment variables for things like config, secrets, API keys, those kind of things. And typically your cloud provider is going to offer some sort of service for that. For example, if you take a look at Google Cloud, there is a secret manager. So the secret manager is a place where you define your environment variables. And then there's also an easy way to access those variables in your serverless functions. For example, let's create a secret database credentials. And then I'm going to provide a value, like, I don't know, let's say some sort of password or secret value. It doesn't really matter what it is, really just to show you. And then we're going to create the secret. As you can see, there's built-in versioning. You can also specify how long you want a particular secret to be available. But now we have our database credentials secret. And then what you can do in your Cloud Run function is that you can actually specify access to that. So if I click on this function and then I'm going to deploy a new revision, and it's going to be similar in most other cloud platforms as well, then actually I can go here to my variables and secrets, and then I can refer to a secret, and that's going to be my database credentials. And for the secret, this is the one that I'm going to pick. And then you can even specify the version, for example, the latest version. There we go. And now when you deploy this, then this secret is going to be available under this environment variable name in your Python code, which is really nice. And that also means that you don't have to store this in a Git repository or send it to your colleagues via a Teams chat or something like that. You just store it here securely. Another security thing is to make sure you restrict access. Now, I've showed you how to create a public endpoint. That's not very secure because once you have the endpoint, then basically anybody can call that and do that many times, which, well, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So avoid those unless that is actually the feature that you actually need. And you can use access management in these cloud providers to control access, like who has access to these things. Is that everybody or is that like a particular type of user? To be honest, though, I do think this is one area where cloud providers can do a better job. I found documentation in Google Cloud for permissions and roles typically quite limited. That's also the same for example, AWS. I tried setting up a similar serverless function in AWS. Writing the code was the easy part, but figuring out what roles and permissions to assign to the various tasks was really a pain in terms of who can deploy it and who can actually access the function. And it was the same thing on Google Cloud. So I feel like a lot of the expertise in using these cloud systems comes in like knowing how to control access and making sure that you're not just opening it up to everybody just because you can't figure out how to actually properly control the access. Now, on top of that, Google Cloud currently has two versions of Cloud Functions. There's the first gen and the second generation, and they have different roles and different permissions. And well, the documentation is sparse. And the same goes for the permissions related to deployment. For that, you need a service account, and you also need to make sure that this has a minimal privilege, only has the roles that it actually needs. But again, it's kind of painful, and you have to resist the urge to just make it an admin so that at least it works, which defeats the purpose of having such a system in the first place. Cloud providers, make this simpler. Okay, rant over. Now, I've told you that one of the main limitations of Cloud Functions is that there is a single endpoint, which for basic stuff is nice. But what if you want to have multiple endpoints in a single function? And this is actually possible because of a feature of Flask, which Google Cloud relies on. And the way it works is that you can define an internal mini Flask app inside the Cloud function and then route the request to your particular internal Flask app. That's what I'm doing right here. So here what I did is I have another Cloud function that basically allows reading information about a couple of different YouTube channels. So that's all in a JSON file. And what I did is I created an internal Flask app, and then I defined this internal route, which is /channels/ and then the ID of the channel. And then basically I retrieved the channel from the JSON file. But of course you could do this from a database or whatever you want. And then in the end, we have the HTTP Cloud function. What that does, it creates a new app context for this internal app. And then it dispatches this request to the internal app and then returns the response. So I've now deployed this function to the cloud. And when I simply go to the endpoint, then this is what we get because you need to specify a channel ID. And here I pick my own channel and you see we get a JSON response. So basically this will allow you to develop a full-fledged RESTful API in a single Cloud Function, which is interesting. And this can actually be quite handy for smaller APIs. Well, I wouldn't use this for full-fledged APIs. I mean, I'm not sure how much this extra indirection costs, for example, but I'd say that's not even the main issue. I mean, for a full-fledged API, I'd want to use something like Fast API. Maybe I want more control over the execution environment. Maybe I need some extra storage. And that means that at the moment, at least, you're going to need another solution than a simple serverless function. So what are those other solutions then? Well, the thing that we've been using now in Google Cloud is called Cloud Run Functions. That's the second generation. It's, as you can see, it's pretty easy to set up. The scaling is fully managed. Like I mentioned, the runtimes are limited. There's only Flask, no Fast API, and one route only, though you can get around that. And there's other issues like cold starts that you may have to deal with. Now, an alternative to Cloud Run Functions is Cloud Run. And that is more flexible. That supports any container. So you can basically create your own Docker container with your favorite frameworks installed. Fast API, Django, Flask, whatever you want. You have full access to everything that Docker offers, like Linux versions, Python versions, use your own base image. You can do anything you like in terms of routing or using a full web framework. Now, it is slightly more work to set up. You need a Docker file, and it's also going to be more expensive, because what happens is that you basically give your cloud provider a Docker file and say, hey, host this somewhere, and you will typically have one running instance of that image at least. So that means you're basically paying an amount per month for that service versus the serverless functions where you're only paying when they're actually being invoked. Now, you can also do it that way with Cloud Run, but then you will have more cold start issues since you're supplying a custom Docker container, and that's just going to take longer than one of these ready-to-go runtime environments of the serverless functions. Now, if you want to go all out and have a way more complicated system that has also storage, and you want full control over orchestration, you have a large system, then you would use something like Kubernetes. That also gives you full flexibility over networking, runtimes, etc. Now, of course, a Kubernetes cluster is a lot more complex than just running a serverless function or even Cloud Run, because you need to manage scaling, security, updates, etc. I've done this actually in one of my previous companies. It's not even that hard, but it is a lot more work than using one of these ready-to-go things. Now, that being said, it's always a trade-off, right? I mean, you may not always need complexity, and especially in the beginning when you're just starting with a new project, having something very simple that's not very expensive, but maybe not as scalable in terms of cost, that might be a very good start. But then as you progress and things become more complex, well, you may want to have more control over the aspects of how your application runs. And that's when you grow more into the hosted Docker container solutions or even a full-on Kubernetes cluster. Now, like I said, these serverless functions, they're great for faster deployments, but there are some limitations. For anything that's more complex, if you need asynchronous, if you need concurrency, custom runtimes, full APIs, consider deploying a full-on Docker container or even a Kubernetes cluster if you're up for that type of challenge. On the other hand, if you only need a really simple piece of code that runs when something happens in another system, let's say you want to process an invoice or something, well, you may want to go for something even simpler, like N8N. But I'd like to hear from you. What kind of cloud resources do you typically use? What's your go-to solution when you start? Is that something like a serverless function? Do you just deploy a Docker container? Do you vibe code something in Devin or Lovable or any of those tools? What's your go-to solution? Let me know in the comments. Like I mentioned earlier, most cloud providers roughly provide the same types of resources, but there are some differences. If you want to learn more about that, check out this video next. Thanks for watching and see you next time.